Hello there, and welcome to Deep Space Sleep Channel. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Maybe you came looking for rest, or maybe for understanding, though often the two are the same. When the world fills with noise and thought, the mind forgets how to be quiet. But psychology, in its gentlest form, is not about fixing what's wrong. It's about remembering how calm feels. Tonight, we'll drift through the hidden workings of the mind, the rhythms beneath thought, the small patterns of memory and emotion that guide every breath. You'll hear how neurons rest, how emotions balance, how awareness softens into peace. Each fact is a quiet door into understanding, not to awaken you, but to help you drift closer to stillness. If you're still awake near the end, tell me where you're listening from tonight. It helps others find their way here, to this calm little corner of the mind. For now, just listen, breathe, and let your thoughts grow quiet. You don't need to think about the mind, it's already at rest. Let's begin. As you begin to drift towards sleep, your brain waves slow in a graceful descent. The busy beta rhythms that carry you through daylight thoughts give way to the gentler alpha and theta waves. Like ripples softening across a quiet pond, neurons no longer fire in sharp bursts, but begin to synchronize, pulsing together in wide, slow arcs. This shift marks the brain's decision to loosen control, to trade analysis for restoration. In this slower rhythm, the mind stops measuring time. Perception fades into a calm pulse that feels infinite. As these waves deepen, they prepare every cell to repair, every memory to settle. It's the moment the body begins its nightly ritual of healing, where wakefulness dissolves not into darkness, but into rhythm, a soft electrical tide that whispers, "Rest now." The brain is still awake, but dreaming of silence, somewhere between waking and sleep. A doorway opens the stage where dreams begin. The mind, freed from the weight of daylight logic, begins to assemble fragments of memory into delicate collages. Faces drift through clouds, colors merge with voices, and emotion becomes architecture. In this liminal state, the thalamus filters less, letting imagination and sensory traces intertwine. What begins as random sparks soon forms storylines, faint yet meaningful. This stage, known as REM, is where reality bends into something kind, where time loses edges. The brain rehearses emotions, experiments with safety, and rewrites fear into image. In this rehearsal, understanding doesn't need words. The dreaming mind repairs itself by pretending, by creating worlds where every unanswered thought finds a place to rest. The body lies still, but within, everything moves softly, an orchestra of neurons playing lullabies made of memory. During sleep, the mind quietly replays the day, like a librarian sorting through books left open on the table. Unnecessary details fade, while moments with meaning are marked, stored, and tucked safely away. This process, called memory consolidation, is the brain's way of cleaning house. Electrical ripples sweep across the hippocampus, carrying recent experiences into long-term storage. The useless clutter, the small anxieties and noise of the day is washed away in this neural tide. What remains becomes part of who you are. Scientists call it replay, but it's closer to forgiveness, the mind letting go of what it doesn't need, keeping only the quiet truths. In the dark, without effort, your brain edits your life into clarity, so you can wake lighter, unburdened, and ready to begin again. Deep within the night, slow wave sleep takes over the most restful phase of the cycle. In this state, brain waves stretch long and deliberate, and the body enters its deepest repair. Muscles loosen, heart rate slows, and stress hormones retreat. The mind uses this stillness to balance emotions, processing conflict and calming overactive circuits. Each slow oscillation helps wash metabolic waste from brain tissue, clearing away the residue of thought. Studies show that without enough of this phase, emotional resilience fades. The world feels sharper, heavier, but when the waves complete their rhythm, the system resets. Anger softens, sadness organizes into understanding, and clarity blooms in quiet. You may not dream here, but this is where the foundation of peace is rebuilt, the unspoken therapy of rest itself. As daylight fades, the prefrontal cortex, the mind's planner, critic, and storyteller begins to dim its light. All day it's been busy predicting, deciding, solving, but at night, it finally steps aside. With its logic silenced, creativity and emotion gain space to move. The amygdala breathes slower. The hippocampus sorts freely, and neural connections strengthen without judgment. In this rest, you stop performing yourself. The roles and worries dissolve into something simpler. This nightly surrender allows the brain to repair pathways worn thin by effort. You don't lose control, you regain balance. The pause of the prefrontal cortex is not absence, but mercy, a reminder that peace isn't the result of more thinking, but of thinking less. And as it quiets, you return to something older than thought pure, silent being. Sometimes, just as you begin to drift, flashes of dream flicker behind closed eyes, brief scenes that vanish almost before they form. These are micro-dreams, tiny rehearsals where the mind processes leftover thoughts, too small or fragmented for full dreams. They occur in the early stages of sleep, when logic relaxes, but awareness hasn't fully faded. Here, the brain knits together stray emotions, unfinished sentences, and fading sensations, giving them a soft landing instead of leaving them to linger. It's a quiet housekeeping of consciousness, a way to prevent mental clutter from carrying into deeper rest. Ich Fleisch, each impossible image, is a thread tied off neatly. By the time you sink deeper, the noise has been woven into calm, and the mind has already begun its nightly work of clearing space for peace. Among the many rhythms of the brain, theta waves are the strangest kind of calm. They arrive when the body rests, but the mind still drifts, carrying a faint hum of awareness beneath drowsiness. Artists and meditators often slip into this rhythm when creativity and tranquility overlap. Theta waves pulse 4 to 7 times per second, slow enough to soothe, fast enough to keep a spark of consciousness alive. In this rhythm, time stretches, and thought loses its edges. The mind stops chasing conclusions and simply observes. Neuroscientists call it an idle state, but it's closer to a gentle suspension of self, a place where reflection happens without effort. In theta's slow tide, anxiety fades, imagination breathes, and awareness becomes weightless, hovering between sleep and silence. Sleep is not just rest, it's the reset button for emotion. Each night, as the brain cycles through its stages, Neural pathways involved in fear and frustration quiet down. The amygdala, often overactive during waking hours, is soothed by the prefrontal cortex's gentle rebalancing. This nightly dialogue helps the brain regulate feelings that daytime logic cannot. Emotional memories are replayed and softened, their edges dulled so they no longer sting. It's why, after a good night's sleep, a problem feels smaller, or grief less sharp. Without this reset, emotions build pressure like static, but with it, the system clears, making room for calm and perspective. The science may describe circuits and chemicals, yet beneath it all, sleep is emotional forgiveness, the brain's way of quietly starting over. During rapid eye movement or REM sleep, the mind enters a realm of vivid storytelling. Here, neurons in the visual and emotional centers spark intensely, while the body remains still, a paradox of motionless activity. Researchers believe this phase is where the brain repairs memory, blending emotional context with stored facts. Fragments of the day mix with imagination, reinforcing learning while easing the charge of experience. It's why dreaming after trauma or stress often feels cathartic. The brain replays without reliving. Synapses strengthen, unnecessary details fade, and important patterns stabilize. REM is the lab where the mind performs its nightly experiment on memory, keeping what matters and softening what hurts. As eyes move beneath closed lids, the inner world rewrites itself, quietly, memory renewed not by effort, but by dreaming. Forgetting is not a flaw, it's the mind's survival skill. Each day floods the brain with sensations, words, and impressions far more than it could ever hold. During sleep, specialized neural processes trim redundant connections, preserving energy for what truly matters. This pruning keeps thought pathways clear, preventing overload and confusion. Without it, memories would collide, ideas would blur, and clarity would vanish under the weight of remembering everything. Forgetting allows renewal. It transforms chaos into coherence, leaving only what strengthens identity and understanding. The mind, in its wisdom, knows that peace requires space. So as night deepens, countless details fade, dissolving like mist at dawn. What remains is not emptiness, but simplicity, the elegant quiet of a mind that has learned to let go. As the night deepens, the mind doesn't vanish, it changes language, trading words for rhythm. Beneath every decision lies a map you never see. The subconscious mind, shaped by years of repetition, quietly steers the body through countless small choices: which path to walk, when to pause, whom to trust. It works faster than awareness, scanning past outcomes to predict what feels safe. These hidden patterns, stored in neural loops, form habits that spare the conscious mind from overload. What seems like instinct is often data refined by time. The brain recognizes the texture of familiarity and moves toward it. Sometimes this means repeating comfort. Other times, it means avoiding pain. Either way, the orchestra plays beneath thought, turning memory into motion. What you call preference is the echo of experience humming below the surface, a rhythm so steady you forget it's there. There is a fraction of a second, shorter than a blink, when the brain decides before you know it has. Neurons in the motor cortex fire, initiating action milliseconds before consciousness catches up. Scientists call it the readiness potential, a subtle pulse that precedes awareness. It's as if the mind begins writing a note before you've thought of what to say. This delay doesn't remove free will. It reveals cooperation between conscious and unconscious forces. Awareness follows the decision, interpreting it as choice. The feeling of control arrives slightly late, like light from a distant star. What you call "I decided" is really a dialogue between layers of the same mind, one fast, one slow, both working toward balance. In that space, thought becomes observation, and choice becomes rhythm. Intuition is the mind's quiet, lightning-fast, wordless, and rooted in pattern. Long before logic begins its careful sorting, the subconscious scans for familiar shapes, tone in a voice, flicker in a glance, shift in the air. This rapid recognition, drawn from stored memory, produces a feeling, a knowing without knowing why. It's the brain's way of summarizing thousands of signals into one small pulse of certainty. Studies show that intuition often outpaces reason in accuracy because it draws on experience too deep for awareness to measure. When you call something a hunch, it is the orchestra of neurons playing a melody you've heard before. Trusting it isn't guessing, it's remembering in silence. The mind thinks quickly, but intuition breathes calm, unscient, and nearly always right in tone. Of all the senses, smell is the most intimate with memory. Molecules drift through the air, entering the nose and traveling directly to the limbic system, the brain's emotional core bypassing rational filters. One whiff can resurrect entire scenes: a childhood room, a lost friend, a forgotten summer. Unlike words or images, scent carries emotion unedited. It doesn't describe the past, it delivers it whole. The subconscious keeps these olfactory traces stored deep, waiting for a single cue to unlock them. When it happens, time folds the past, breathing again through a single inhale. Scientists can trace the neural path, but not the tenderness it carries. Smell is memory's messenger, and through it, the brain reminds you that nothing meaningful ever truly vanishes. It simply waits in air. While you sleep, your brain quietly rehearses tomorrow, deep in its circuits. Patterns of concern and anticipation replay, refining responses before the day arrives. The amygdala simulates threat. The prefrontal cortex plans how to soften it. This nocturnal rehearsal transforms worry into preparation, turning vague fears into calm readiness. The subconscious uses dream fragments, imagined conversations, and faint echoes of anxiety to practice emotional balance. It's not punishment, it's prevention. By morning, the system has already tested its defenses, trimming panic into poise. You wake with a sense that something has settled, though you can't say what. In truth, your mind has already faced the day once. Quietly, in darkness, where fear learned to breathe slower and transform into resilience. Every habit begins as effort, then slowly becomes architecture. The brain builds shortcuts through repetition, allowing clusters of neurons to fire together until the pattern no longer needs conscious thought. What was once choice turns into wiring efficient, silent, and deeply familiar. This automation saves energy, freeing awareness for new challenges. Yet each repetition also carves identity, shaping who you are through what you do without thinking. The basal ganglia manage this rhythm, cue to reward, again and again. Changing a habit means rewriting that circuit, not erasing it, but replacing its melody. It takes time, patience, and a different kind of attention. gentle rather than forceful. The beauty of habit is that it proves learning never stops. Even silence can retrain the brain, turning intention into nature and effort into ease. Every movement you make, from blinking to breathing, follows an intricate choreography invisible to awareness. The brainstem and cerebellum coordinate muscle tone, timing, and balance with millisecond precision, while the conscious mind merely watches. This calm machinery operates like a quiet engineer, keeping life steady without applause. Its consistency allows thought to wander freely, while the body remains safe within practiced patterns. Each heartbeat, each small gesture, is the result of millions of automatic calculations unfolding beneath awareness. There is serenity in that constancy, a reminder that not all control requires attention. The mind's truest genius may be its ability to work perfectly when you've stopped trying. Beneath every action lies trust, the body remembering what it once learned, performing it again with grace that feels like stillness. Free will, for all its beauty, may be one of the mind's kindest illusions. Studies show that brain activity predicting a decision often appears before conscious awareness of choosing. Yet, this delay doesn't make us puppets. It makes us participants in a story our neurons begin writing early. The illusion of control offers emotional comfort, a sense of authorship that keeps chaos at bay. It allows meaning to exist, even in randomness. The conscious mind interprets the orchestra's music, giving it purpose, while the subconscious composes. Both roles are essential. Without the illusion, existence would feel mechanical. With it, we find dignity and direction. Perhaps free will is not false, but poetic. The brain's way of letting awareness believe it leads. So peace can accompany movement. Your brain lives a heartbeat ahead of reality. Every second, it predicts what the senses will report next, preparing responses before the world fully arrives. This predictive coding helps perception flow smoothly, reducing surprise and conserving energy. When a pattern breaks, a sudden noise or flicker attention snaps awake. Most of what you see or feel is not direct experience, but anticipation constantly adjusted. The mind acts as both fortune teller and correction tool, editing reality in real time. This slight delay explains why reflexes feel instant and why déjà vu feels hauntingly familiar. Life is always unfolding just behind the brain's forecast. Yet, in that gap lies comfort, the awareness that even uncertainty is expected, and the mind, ever watchful, is already reaching forward to meet it with calm precision. Silence is not emptiness, it is information without noise. When the world grows still, subtle signals once buried under sound become audible again. The brain, relieved from constant processing, turns inward and listens to slower rhythms, heartbeat, breath, fin memory. In this quiet, intuition strengthens, connecting distant networks that rarely meet amid distraction. Creativity, empathy, and insight emerge from this pause. Shaped by neural synchrony in the alpha range, the brain's frequency of peace, silence, refines awareness into sensitivity, allowing faint patterns to surface like stars in a dark sky. What seems like nothing is actually clarity widening. The subconscious, freed from chatter, speaks in calm impressions rather than words. To listen is to align with your own rhythm, the original language of understanding. Beneath thought lies rhythm, and beneath rhythm, emotion. Long before the brain learned to think, the gut was already feeling. Inside its dense network of neurons, often called the second brain, messages travel independently of conscious thought, guiding instinct, emotion, and even intuition. The gut produces most of the body's serotonin, shaping mood from within. Signals from the intestines inform the brain whether the body feels safe or threatened, influencing decisions that seem purely mental. When your stomach tightens with worry or softens with relief, it's not imagination, it's ancient communication. This connection is millions of years old, a remnant of when survival depended on sensing before knowing. Modern science now calls it the gut-brain axis, but it's older than words. The quiet reminder that wisdom lives not just in thought, but in the body's oldest intelligence, always whispering what the mind forgets to hear. Each emotion leaves its own pulse across the heart. When fear rises, the rhythm quickens. When calm returns, it slows like a tide receding. The heart doesn't simply respond to feeling, it shapes it. With every beat, pressure signals travel to the brain, subtly altering perception and mood. Scientists call this feedback loop interoception, the body reading itself to understand emotion. A steady heartbeat teaches the brain that all is well, creating space for patience and empathy. When rhythm becomes chaotic, anxiety follows. Yet even small moments of rest, a deep breath, a pause, a help, synchronize both systems again. The heart and mind are partners in dialogue, not master and servant. Their shared language is rhythm, and in its balance lies the simple, profound sense that you are safe inside your own skin. Hormones speak in whispers the mind can feel but not hear. Every emotion begins as chemistry, tiny messengers like cortisol, dopamine, and oxytocin flowing through invisible pathways, shaping what thoughts can arise. When you feel sudden joy, a surge of dopamine amplifies attention. When sadness lingers, cortisol keeps the system alert. The brain interprets these changes as meaning, unaware that the story began in the bloodstream. Thought and hormone are dancers in perfect synchrony, one leading, one following, switching roles endlessly. This dialogue maintains equilibrium, ensuring neither logic nor feeling ever rule alone. You cannot think your way out of emotion, nor feel without the mind translating. Together, they form the full circle of experience, the unseen current beneath awareness that turns sensation into understanding, and chemistry into compassion. Slow breathing is more than relaxation, it's molecular dialogue. With each measured inhale and gentle exhale, the vagus nerve sends calm signals through the body, reducing heart rate and lowering cortisol. Oxygen shifts blood chemistry, restoring balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, the body's accelerators and brakes. This deliberate rhythm tells the brain that danger has passed, releasing tension stored in muscles and thought alike. Scientists call it respiratory coherence, a state where breath and heartbeat align in harmony. Ancient traditions discovered it long before biology could explain it. To breathe slowly is to remind the body it is safe. And when the body believes this, the mind follows. Peace, it turns out, is not created by thinking differently, but by breathing in a way that tells the brain the storm is over. Tears are the body's language of release chemistry turned into emotion you can see. Emotional tears differ from those caused by pain or dust. They contain stress hormones and endorphins, a complex cocktail designed to restore balance. When you cry, the parasympathetic system activates, slowing the heartbeat and calming the nervous system. The act itself signals surrender, a physical permission to stop resisting. Cultures may teach restraint, but biology knows crying is medicine. It cleanses not only the eyes, but also the space between thoughts, creating clarity after turbulence. That quiet lightness you feel afterward is measurable. Oxytocin rises, heart rhythm steadies, and emotional tension dissolves. Tears are not weakness, but wisdom, the body, reminding the mind that release is a kind of intelligence. And peace is simply what follows when holding on finally ends. Touch is the body's oldest language of safety. A gentle hand on the shoulder or a hug activates pressure receptors beneath the skin that send calm signals through the vagus nerve to the brain. This quiet chain reaction lowers cortisol, slows the heart, and steadies breathing. Infants rely on this system before they can speak, and adults never truly lose it. Even a brief touch can reset the nervous system, confirming connection and safety without words. The body remembers this truth long before thought interprets it. Closeness equals calm. In moments of anxiety, a hand over the heart or a soft blanket can echo that same primitive comfort. It is not sentiment, but biology, the reminder that you are not alone. Touch is the body's reassurance that the world still holds you gently, and that stillness is allowed. Gratitude does more than soften the mind, it slows the body's rhythm. When you focus on what is well instead of what is missing, the brain shifts activity from the stress circuits of the amygdala to the reflective centers of the prefrontal cortex. Heart rate decreases, breathing deepens, and the parasympathetic system begins to lead. This change floods the body with oxytocin and dopamine, chemicals of connection and reward. The feeling of thankfulness is not abstract, it's physical harmony. Gratitude transforms awareness into alignment, reducing inner noise by reminding the mind of abundance rather than lack. Each quiet acknowledgement, no matter how small, steadies the pulse. In that pause, time widens, and the simple act of noticing becomes medicine. The heart listens, slows, and quietly answers back, enough. When people share deep emotion, their hearts begin to keep time together. Scientists studying empathy found that two individuals engaged in genuine connection often experience synchronized heart rhythms and breathing pattern. This resonance, though invisible, reflects a biological alignment, the body's way of recognizing shared feeling. In conversation, laughter, or quiet presence, the nervous systems of both individuals tune to the same frequency. This synchronization reduces anxiety and strengthens trust, helping communication feel effortless. Empathy, then, is not just psychological, it's physical music played between bodies. Each heartbeat mirrors the other, affirming a wordless truth. You are seen, you are safe. Beneath speech and thought, connection lives as rhythm, reminding us that compassion is not taught, it is remembered through pulse and breath, moving as one. Oxytocin is often called the love hormone, but its true gift is calm, released through touch, trust, or even kind intention. It signals to the brain that connection has been achieved and vigilance can rest. It dampens activity in fear centers and enhances social memory, allowing people to feel at ease in company. Communities thrive on its subtle chemistry. Shared meals, gentle voices, and eye contact all weave its presence into daily life. In this web of safety, isolation softens and cooperation feels natural. Oxytocin is the biological fabric of peace, stitching individuals into belonging. Its presence doesn't erase difference, it harmonizes it. When it flows freely, the mind loosens its armor, and the world feels less like something to survive, and more like something shared. Self-soothing is not weakness, but ancient intelligence. Long before language, early humans rocked, hummed, or swayed to calm themselves movements that rhythmically synchronize the nervous system. These instincts remain coded into us. When you hum, breathe slowly, or wrap yourself in warmth, you activate the parasympathetic pathways that restore equilibrium. The body recognizes the pattern instantly, as if remembering a lullaby from deep time. Modern science measures it through reduced heart rate and increased vagal tone. But the essence is simple. Comfort restores order. To soothe oneself is to return to the body's original wisdom, a dialogue between motion and peace. It requires no permission, no audience, only awareness. Within that quiet rhythm, the mind remembers safety, and the body responds with trust, completing the oldest cycle of calm known to life. When feeling subsides, to awareness listens, and what it hears is peace. Even in moments of deep focus, the mind drifts away every 40 seconds or so. This wandering is not failure, but function, a built-in rhythm of renewal. The brain shifts between networks, one devoted to attention, the other to imagination. When it wanders, it sorts through lingering thoughts, unresolved questions, and faint emotions, clearing space for clarity to return. The drift allows creativity and rest to alternate like breathing. Without it, focus would collapse under its own weight. Each lapse into daydream is a micro-reboot. Invisible but essentiel. Scientists call it the default mode network. Yet it feels more like the hum of consciousness stretching its legs. So when your attention slips, remember, the mind is not leaving the task. It's preparing to come back wiser, steadier, and more awake to what truly matters. Creativity thrives in the balance between focus and daydream. When attention locks too tightly, the mind loses flexibility. When it wanders too far, ideas dissolve. But between the two lies a rhythm concentration punctuated by drift. In this alternation, the brain moves from its executive control network to its default mode, cross-linking distant regions where new associations form. That's why insights often appear while walking, showering, or staring into space. The daydreaming mind connects dots that logic overlooks, while focused, attention refines those sparks into shape. This balance is nature's design, engagement and release. Inhale and exhale. Creativity is not chaos. It's the dance between order and wonder, thought and silence. Every great idea begins in that small surrender, the moment you stop forcing and simply allow the mind to roam. Attention is finite. Like energy drawn from a single battery, the brain consumes enormous resources to stay focused, feeding neural circuits with oxygen and glucose. After a time, those reserves deplete, and distraction creeps in as a form of protection. The mind shifts away, not because it's lazy, but because it needs to recover. This limitation is what gives focus its value moments of clarity surrounded by rest. Just as muscles require pause to grow stronger, so too does concentration rely on intervals of release. Understanding this rhythm changes how we work and rest. True attention is not sustained strain, but measured pulse, an ebb and flow that honors biology. When used with care, The mind stays sharp. When ignored, it dulls under its own light. Balance keeps awareness alive. Monotony, though often dismissed as dull, as a keyed power, repetition stabilizes the nervous system, giving the brain a predictable pattern to rest within. Activities like knitting, walking, or listening to rhythmic sounds reduce neural noise, synchronizing body and thought. In that sameness, the mind relaxes its grip on novelty and enters a meditative state where awareness expands subtly. The calm of monotony is not boredom, but refuge away for the brain to conserve energy while maintaining gentle engagement. This is why simple tasks can feel soothing when the world feels overwhelming. The steady rhythm acts like background breathing for the mind, creating order in place of chaos. Through monotony, the self dissolves into motion, and in that surrender, a deeper clarity quietly emerges. Background noise, paradoxically, can steady the mind. A soft hum of rain, distant chatter, or gentle white noise masks sudden sounds that would otherwise jolt attention. The auditory cortex relaxes, no longer scanning for every threat. This constancy allows the prefrontal regions to focus without fear of interruption. Many people find creativity blooming in cafes or under the sound of waves. For this reason, mild stimulation balances the brain's need for awareness and calm. The noise becomes a cushion, not a distraction. It fills the silence just enough to quiet inattention. In that steady auditory field, the mind feels accompanied, but not invaded. Focus becomes effortless, like floating rather than swimming. The world continues around you, yet within, stillness grows. As focus fades, the world doesn't disappear. It opens, repetition soothes, because the brain finds safety in the familiar. Each repeated motion or phrase lowers uncertainty, allowing neural circuits to relax and synchronize. Predictability tells the nervous system that no new threat is coming, reducing cortisol and steadying the heart. This is why rhythmic sounds, gentle rocking, or mantras create calm. They mimic the natural cycles of breath and heartbeat. In repetition, attention narrows until awareness and action become one smooth loop. The mind stops evaluating and begins to rest within pattern. What feels like monotony is actually balance, the brain's way of conserving energy while maintaining connection to the moment. Through repetition, Schausfages, time softens, and consciousness drifts into still rhythm, finding in simplicity the deep comfort of knowing what comes next. Mindfulness and REM sleep share a secret architecture. In both states, brain waves slow into synchronized patterns that link distant regions of the mind. During meditation, alpha and theta rhythms resemble those seen in deep dream phases, fostering integration between emotion, memory, and awareness. The body becomes still, yet neural activity flows with gentle coherence. This alignment restores calm, much like dreaming does, only without losing consciousness. Both processes clear emotional residue, strengthen memory, and renew focus. The mindful state is a waking dream, a bridge between rest and clarity. In this rhythm, thought softens into observation, and observation into peace. You're not escaping the world, you're entering it more fully, through stillness that listens rather than speaks. Wandering thoughts act as pressure valves for the mind. When attention drifts, it allows unresolved ideas and emotions to surface briefly, preventing them from building into stress. The default mode network, active during daydreaming, provides this mental release, reorganizing memories and testing future scenarios. Without such pauses, attention would overheat and anxiety would rise. Letting the mind roam is not distraction, but balance, the psyche's way of cooling its own machinery. Each stray thought is a tiny recalibration, a way for the brain to check its bearings. When you return to focus afterward, the clutter has thinned, replaced by quiet order. Wandering, it seems, is not the opposite of discipline, but its secret companion, keeping the system fluid and kind. Concentration moves like a tide, slow and deliberate. When you focus deeply, neural oscillations align into low-frequency rhythms that stabilize perception and quiet distraction. The mind narrows its field, filtering noise and reinforcing circuits dedicated to a single task. Over time, this rhythm becomes self-sustaining. Thought follows thought, like waves following one another toward shore. Yet deep concentration is not tension, it's precision wrapped in calm. Muscles loosen, breathing steadies, and awareness sharpens without strain. This slow rhythm preserves energy while deepening engagement in its flow. Time looses edges, and the act of doing becomes indistinguishable from being. Focus, at its purest, is not control but surrender to order, the body and mind moving together at the speed of understanding. As sleep approaches, attention loosens its grip. The networks that hold focus begin to dim, while those governing imagery and emotion rise. Alpha waves soften into theta, pulling awareness toward inner landscapes. The world outside fades, but not abruptly. It melts into the dreamlike edges of perception. The boundary between thought and imagination blurs, and consciousness becomes fluid. This dissolution of attention is the brain's way of preparing for rest, shifting from control to trust. Each moment of drifting is a signal the system is safe enough to let go. Focus does not vanish, it transforms into openness, a quiet readiness to receive instead of direct. In that surrender, the mind finds peace, not in shutting down, but in expanding beyond effort. As focus furthers, the world doesn't disappear, it opens. Each time you remember something, you rewrite it. The act of recall reopens the neural file, allowing new emotions and context to mix with the original trace before it's stored again. This is called reconsolidation, and it explains why memories shift subtly over time. The mind edits not to deceive, but to adapt, transforming raw experience into something that fits who you've become. What you recall is not a photograph, but a painting, brushed anew each viewing. The past changes color with perspective, and in doing so, remains alive. This flexibility is mercy. It lets pain soften and meaning evolve. Memory, in truth, is a living story written by a present self in dialogue with what once was. Proof that the mind values healing more than accuracy. Memory is never stored like a file on a shelf. It drifts, fluid and dreamlike. When the brain records an event, it scatters pieces across regions, sensory fragments, emotions, sounds, and images woven together by the hippocampus into narrative. During recall, these fragments reassemble, guided by current mood and need. That's why memory feels more like imagination than fact. It's a reconstruction, a lucid dream that stabilizes just long enough to make sense before dissolving again. This constant remixing keeps the self dynamic, allowing identity to flow instead of freeze. The dreamlike quality of memory is not a flaw, but its secret wisdom, the mind's way of keeping past and present gently intertwined, never separate, always evolving. Déjà vu is the mind's quiet echo, a momentary overlap between memory and perception. It occurs when the brain's familiarity circuits activate slightly ahead of conscious recognition, signaling that something has been seen before even when it hasn't. The temporal lobe, mistaking the new for the remembered, produces a wave of recognition without source. This misfire lasts only seconds, but its sensation is profound. The present feels haunted by itself, rather than error. It reveals how tightly memory and time are bound. The brain constantly predicts experience based on stored patterns. Déjà vu is when prediction and reality momentarily align too perfectly. It's a reminder that perception is not raw truth, but a dialogue with the past, a conversation where memory sometimes speaks first. The hippocampus is the mind's archivist, a living library that never closes. Each day, it catalogues new experiences, tagging them with emotion and relevance before sending them for long-term storage. But unlike a static file clerk, the hippocampus revisits old memories, updating them with context, stitching continuity through life's changes. Damage to it erases recent history, proving how memory depends on this small structure's rhythm of replay and renewal. Within its folds, moments merge a web of place, feeling, and story forming identity's foundation. The hippocampus doesn't merely keep records, it curates meaning, balancing precision with imagination. Every recollection you have passes through its gate, touched by both past and present. It's the quiet architect of self, ensuring that the story of you always has somewhere safe to return. At night, the sense of time softens and expands. Without daylight cues, the brain's internal clock drifts, guided instead by the slow oscillations of sleep cycles. Dreams unfold without linear order, blending past and future into seamless now. The prefrontal cortex, which tracks sequence and cause, quiets, while emotional centers rise in influence. This shift blurs minutes into hours, creating the timeless atmosphere of night reflection. Even wakeful moments feel suspended, as if existence itself breathes slower. The mind, freed from measuring, experiences time as texture rather than number. This fluidity restores balance. By loosening the grip of chronology, the psyche reclaims depth. When morning returns, the world tightens back into schedule. But for a while, the self has floated in pure duration infinite, uncounted, and at peace. Nostalgia is chemistry disguised as emotion. When you recall a cherished moment, the brain releases oxytocin, the same hormone tied to trust and bonding. This surge softens stress responses, lowering cortisol and easing heart rate. The past becomes a safe place the body can re-enter without danger. That's why old songs, scents, or photographs bring both warmth and ache. They awaken the biology of connection. Nostalgia isn't about longing for what's gone. It's about feeling again the safety once known. In that gentle flood of oxytocin, isolation dissolves, and belonging returns. If only for a heartbeat. Science calls it emotional regulation. But the heart recognizes it as home, a brief reunion between memory and presence, proving that the mind stores not just images of the past, but the comfort of being loved within them. Autobiographical memories soothe because they remind the body of endurance when pain or fear arises. The brain accesses stories of survival moments where difficulty passed and calm returned. These memories activate regions tied to empathy and regulation, producing a biochemical counterweight to distress. The act of remembering yourself whole signals the nervous system that healing has happened before and can happen again. In this way, memory becomes medicine, not through escape, but reassurance. Recollection rebuilds continuity, showing that suffering is temporary, part of a longer arc. To remember is to say, I have been here and moved beyond. The pain doesn't vanish, but it finds its place within narrative order, and once it has context, it loses power, leaving behind the quiet strength of recognition, the knowledge that you have survived every yesterday. During sleep, the mind constructs a memory palace, invisible yet vivid, as the hippocampus and cortex communicate. Experiences from the day are sorted and filed into vast neural rooms. Emotions are stripped from raw data and reattached to meaning, turning fragments into story. In dreams, these spaces appear as houses, landscapes, or corridors, symbolic architecture of organization. This nocturnal library keeps the self coherent, even as consciousness fades. By morning, what matters most remains, newly woven into the fabric of identity. It's as if the brain cleans and rearranges its shelves while you rest, leaving only what aligns with understanding. Sleep is the curator of memory, ensuring that when you wake, your past feels like one continuous place, not chaos, but a house quietly kept in order by darkness. Forgetting is essential to becoming someone new. The brain prunes unused connections, much as a gardener trims branches so others can grow stronger. Without this constant refinement, I thought would become tangled and heavy. Forgetting frees energy, allowing the mind to adapt and remain curious. It doesn't erase the past, but clears paths through it. Identity depends on this selective, fading the ability to let go of versions of self that no longer fit. What vanishes makes room for change. To forget is not to lose, but to choose, shaping memory into direction rather than weight. Each lapse is evolution, the quiet sculpting of perspective. Through forgetting, consciousness stays alive, flexible, and forgiving. Proof that wisdom isn't remembering everything, but knowing what can finally rest in silence. Wisdom often begins as erosion. Over time, the sharp edges of certainty wear down, and what once felt absolute becomes smooth and quiet. The brain's patterns shift, replacing speed with synthesis, detail with understanding. Experience teaches that not every question needs answering. Not every wound needs reopening. The slow fading of urgency creates space for clarity to grow. Neurologically, this mirrors aging itself, fewer but stronger neural connections, focused on meaning over novelty. Wisdom is the mind's natural gravity, drawing scattered pieces of life into harmony. It's not gained, but uncovered, like stone beneath soil. In the end, erosion doesn't diminish. It reveals what remains after years of thought and forgetting is not knowledge alone, but peace, the calm recognition that everything has already been enough. Memories fade into patterns, and patterns into stillness. Each slow exhale is a quiet instruction to the body. Release as air leaves the lungs. Baroreceptors in the chest send signals through the vagus nerve that lower blood pressure and heart rate. Cortisol, the stress hormone, begins to ebb in response. This pattern mirrors waves receding from shore, gentle, rhythmic, inevitable. The act of breathing out tells the nervous system that the threat has passed. even if only imagined, over minutes. This feedback rewires tension into calm, shifting the body from alertness to restoration. You don't need to force peace. It's written into the breath itself. With every exhale, chemistry follows intention, proving that serenity is not found outside, but created within, one quiet release at a time. Calm thoughts can reduce inflammation because the mind and immune system share the same conversation. When anxiety fades, the hypothalamus slows the stream of stress hormones that otherwise keep the body in defense mode. In this rest state, cytokines, the molecules that trigger inflammation, decrease, allowing tissues to repair. Optimism, gratitude, and trust aren't abstract emotions. They are signals translated into measurable change. Neural calm becomes chemical calm. Even brief moments of peace, repeated daily, shift the entire ecosystem of the body toward balance. This is the science beneath every meditation and gentle breath, the realization that thought is not separate from flesh, and that tranquility, practiced often enough, becomes biology. Each night, while consciousness drifts, the body quietly detoxifies stress. Cells in the brain and organs flush metabolic byproducts through the lymphatic and glymphatic systems, clearing waste left from daily tension. Cortisol and adrenaline levels drop as melatonin rises, guiding the system toward equilibrium. This nightly cleansing isn't symbolic, it's mechanical renewal. The mind rests so that chemistry can reset. Deep sleep acts as a janitor, rinsing away emotional residue alongside physical debris. You wake not just rested, but restored. The body's molecules rewritten into balance. It is an invisible ritual, ancient as breathing, proving that healing doesn't always require effort. Sometimes it only asks for surrender to the dark and trust in the body's quiet wisdom. Laughter is the nervous system's reboot. When you laugh, dozens of muscles contract and release. The diaphragm pumps rhythmically, and waves of oxygen flood the bloodstream. The brain responds by releasing endorphins and serotonin, dissolving tension within seconds. Neural activity in stress centers drops, replaced by synchronized firing in pleasure networks. Even forced laughter can trigger this chemistry. The body recognizes rhythm before reason. It's a momentary override, the storm clearing through joy's vibration. Afterward, heart rate slows to muscle loosen, and perspective widens. Humor isn't denial, it's transformation. The alchemy of stress into relief. Through laughter, the brain reminds itself that danger has limits and that even pain can share space with lightness. It's a reset written in sound, as healing as breath itself. The placebo effect is belief made chemical. When someone trusts that they're being healed, the brain releases endorphins and dopamine, activating the same pathways as actual medicine. Expectation shapes biology. Hope becomes neurotransmitter. This phenomenon reveals the partnership between mind and body faith, not as mysticism, but as mechanism. The cortex anticipates safety, and the immune system responds as if it were true. Even when the substance is inert, the ritual of care awakens internal repair. The body doesn't need to be deceived, only reassured. The placebo isn't false healing, it's gentle self-belief made visible through chemistry. Each hopeful thought sends ripples through tissue and cell, a reminder that trust itself is one of the oldest medicines nature ever designed. Routine lowers mental noise by replacing uncertainty with rhythm. When actions repeat predictably, The brain conserves energy that would otherwise be spent on decision-making. Neural networks shift from analysis to automation, freeing cognitive space for calm reflection. This stability reduces cortisol, balances mood, and restores attention span. Even small rituals, morning coffee, evening walks, a favorite playlist anchor awareness in familiarity. Routine doesn't imprison creativity, it nurtures it, creating a safe frame where spontaneity can unfold without chaos. The predictability of repetition tells the body that life is stable enough to rest. In a world of constant change, rhythm becomes sanctuary. Through pattern, the mind learns to trust again, proving that peace is often less about what you do and more about doing it with gentle, consistent grace. Surrender in psychology is not defeat, it is release from resistance. When you stop fighting what already is, the nervous system stops flooding the body with signals of threat. The shift from control to acceptance triggers the parasympathetic response, slowing heart rate and restoring balance. The mind softens, allowing emotion to move instead of hardening into tension. Surrender opens a door that force keeps closed, the return of flow. It's the moment where survival transforms into living. This surrender isn't passive, it's active trust in life's continuity. By letting go, you don't lose power, you regain perspective. The body follows this signal, muscles unclenching, breath deepening. In that quiet yielding, the psyche finds its original rhythm. Again, peace disguised as permission. Stillness feels like safety because the absence of movement signals to the brain that danger has passed. Throughout evolution, motion meant vigilance, stillness meant rest. When the body becomes quiet, the amygdala relaxes, and the prefrontal cortex resumes calm control. Breathing slows, heart rhythm stabilizes, and the mind begins to perceive silence as security. This physical serenity seeps upward into thought, creating an emotional echo of peace. It's not that stillness itself heals, but that it allows the body's repair systems to operate without interruption. In quiet, the senses return to subtlety, the world narrows to presence. Stillness tells every cell, you're safe now. And when safety is felt deeply enough, the mind no longer needs to guard, it simply exists. Weightless and whole again. Letting go is both science and surrender. In the brain, emotional attachment lives in limbic circuits that link memory with expectation. When you consciously release what you can't control, these neural loops weaken, reducing stress and freeing cognitive resources. Dopamine levels stabilize, cortisol falls, and the body enters coherence. Letting go is not forgetting, it's rebalancing the chemistry of effort. It allows the frontal cortex responsible for perspective to reassert harmony over impulse and fear. Biologically, you stop signaling threat. Psychologically, you regain space. The act feels intangible, but measurable. A slow unwinding of internal tension into rest. Each time you release, you teach the body a language older than words, the physics of peace through absence of grasping. Acceptance rewires resilience through repetition of trust. Each time, the mind faces discomfort and stays present. New neural pathways form, linking awareness to calm rather than panic. This shift lowers sensitivity to stress, strengthening emotional endurance over time. Acceptance is not agreement, but observation without resistance. A quiet acknowledgement that life includes both turbulence and ease. Neuroplasticity ensures that this practice reshapes the brain's default settings, making recovery faster after difficulty. The body follows suit, regulating hormones and heart rhythm more efficiently. With every act of acceptance, the threshold for suffering rises while compassion deepens. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable, even meaningful. Through this rewiring, resilience stops being a shield and becomes understanding, the kind that knows peace is not escape, but adaptation. Healing is not an action, it is the pause between them. Dreams weave randomness into meaning. During REM sleep, the brain's memory centers reactivate, replaying fragments from recent experiences, emotions, and sensations. Without the logic of the waking prefrontal cortex, these fragments merge freely, forming surreal combinations. The process isn't chaos, it's integration. By stitching unrelated images together, the mind explores emotional themes, tests possibilities, and strengthens neural links between distant memories. Each dream becomes an experiment in understanding, blending the familiar with the impossible to create emotional resolution. What seems random is actually repair, disguised as story. Through this nightly collage, the subconscious ensures that nothing experienced during the day is wasted. Even confusion becomes coherence. The dream doesn't need to make sense to be true. It only needs to remind the mind that every memory, even the scattered ones, still belongs to the whole. The amygdala, the brain's emotional fire, burns brightest at night. During REM sleep, this small almond-shaped region becomes highly active, generating vivid imagery and powerful feelings that color dreams with intensity. It processes unresolved emotions, fear, joy, to désir, regret, transforming them into symbolic narratives. This nightly rehearsal helps the mind regulate emotion, teaching the body how to face strong feelings safely by reactivating the amygdala without real danger. Dreams serve as emotional training grounds. When you wake, reactions to stress soften and empathy deepens. The imagery may feel wild, but its function is precise. Emotional calibration through simulation. The amygdala's nocturnal work is less about mystery than maintenance. It is your mind's quiet way of burning away what no longer serves, leaving behind clarity in the ashes of imagination. Inside the dream world, logic bends yet remains consistent within its own strange physics. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of reasoning, quiets during REM, allowing other brain regions to construct reality from emotion and metaphor instead of cause and effect. This dream logic mirrors art, impossible but coherent in feeling. The mind accepts contradictions without resistance, merging sky and ocean, strangers and friends, past and present. This flexible cognition strengthens creativity, allowing the brain to practice abstract thought, free from the limits of waking reason. Within this surreal theater, the subconscious experiments with possibility, testing how meaning can exist without rules. When you dream, you inhabit the imagination's purest form, a world where paradoxes, peace, and impossibility feels perfectly real. Lucid dreams occur when awareness awakens inside sleep. The dreamer realizes they're dreaming, yet the body remains in REM stillness. This delicate balance activates the prefrontal cortex, the same region quiet during ordinary dreams, creating self-recognition within the fantasy. The brain then merges control with surrender, conscious observation guiding unconscious creation. Lucid dreams reveal that awareness doesn't vanish in rest, it only changes frequency. This state strengthens metacognition, the ability to notice thoughts while experiencing them. It's meditation in motion, imagination under gentle command. Some use it to explore creativity, others for healing or emotional release. The lucid dream is proof that consciousness can exist without waking a light that continues glowing. Quietly aware, even in the depths of night, nightmares are the mind's storm before calm. Though frightening, they serve a biological purpose, processing trauma, stress, and unresolved fear. The amygdala ignites, replaying threat scenarios so the brain can rehearse survival without real danger. This simulation helps reduce the emotional charge of painful memories. By confronting fear symbolically, the psyche transforms chaos into pattern. Even the most terrifying dream carries a dose of medicine, teaching resilience through rehearsal. Upon waking, cortisol levels drop, and clarity often follows. Nightmares are not failures of peace, but guardians of it, drawing darkness into view so it can dissolve. They remind the body that courage is practiced, not granted. That even within fear, the mind is working toward balance. Using imagination as its quietest therapy, across every culture, dreams share familiar symbols: water for emotion, flight for freedom, falling for loss of control. These archetypes emerge not from shared myth but shared biology. The human brain, wired for pattern and metaphor, turns inner sensations into universal imagery. Fear, joy, and longing take form through the same neural circuits across humanity. This is why people who have never met can describe dreams that feel almost identical. The symbols arise from the body's language, not cultures. They are instinct translated into picture. The subconscious using art to communicate what words cannot. Dreams remind us that beneath language and geography, the human mind speaks in symbols of motion, color, and feeling. The grammar of emotion itself. In that shared dreamscape, individuality fades, and what remains is the collective imagination of our species remembering itself. As you dream, the brain is not a passive viewer, but an editor in motion. When a storyline becomes too confusing or threatening, the prefrontal cortex briefly flickers, altering the plot or changing the scene entirely. This mid-dream editing smooths emotional tone, ensuring that the experience continues without waking you. It's the mind's way of maintaining balance between chaos and coherence. Each transition, one setting dissolving into another, reflects this unconscious revision. The dream shapes itself around feeling, not logic. By morning, you recall fragments rather than flow, because the story has been rewritten countless times in real time. The dreaming brain, it seems, is both creator and critic, revising endlessly so that emotion, not sequence, remains the center of the tale. REM sleep is often called controlled chaos, and that chaos fuels creativity. During this stage, the brain's associative networks light up, allowing distant ideas to connect in ways waking logic would block. Emotional centers engage, while rational ones rest, encouraging imagination without judgment. This disorganized firing strengthens problem-solving and innovation. As neural pathways stretch beyond habitual patterns, artists and scientists alike benefit from this nocturnal rehearsal. Solutions often appear after sleep because the mind has already played with possibility. REM's turbulence is productive disorder, a chemical playground where invention thrives. The chaos isn't confusion but freedom, letting thought experiment without fear of failure. By morning, the mind returns to order, carrying with it sparks from the night's beautiful disorder. We forget most dreams because the brain protects waking focus. During REM, neurotransmitters like norepinephrine responsible for memory formation are largely inactive. Without this chemical signal, dream experiences dissolve before they can be transferred to long-term storage. The forgetting is functional. It prevents confusion between imagination and event. Retaining every dream would blur the line between worlds. Still, fragments linger emotions, impressions, flashes of color, traces that subtly shape mood and intuition the next day. Forgetting ensures balance between creation and clarity, letting the subconscious speak without overwhelming the conscious mind. Dreams are meant to be felt, not archived. Their impermanence is the design. Messages written in water, fading as morning light reclaims the room. Surrendering to nonsense is the final piece of dreaming. In the absence of logic, the mind rests from its need to understand. The brain no longer filters or categorizes, it simply experiences. This surrender dissolves identity, allowing pure awareness detached from meaning to emerge. The surreal images and impossible events of dreams are not errors but release, permission for thought to exist without conclusion. Within that chaos lies serenity, the relief of not needing to make sense. When you stop chasing coherence, imagination becomes calm. The dream's nonsense is a kind of truth, one that reminds consciousness it was never built only for reason but also for wonder. In letting go of meaning, the mind rediscovers freedom, the peace of simply being. When story fades, sensation stays, and that is enough. Even while you sleep, your eyes keep moving. During REM stages, they dart beneath closed lids, following the rhythm of internal imagery. These rapid eye movements mirror the gaze shifts of waking life. As if the brain continues to scan the dream world it creates. Meanwhile, the muscles responsible for focus rest, and the optic nerves process only the lightless theatre of imagination. This paradox motion within stillness keeps visual circuits active without overstimulation, preserving both function and flexibility. The eyes practice seeing without sight, maintaining coordination while the mind restores balance. It's a nightly rehearsal that ensures you awaken ready to meet daylight again. Even in rest, the body prepares for perception, proving that vision is more than watching the world. It's an ongoing dance between light, memory, and movement. The brain is not a camera, it is a prediction engine. Moment, it anticipates incoming sensory data and compares it against expectation. Perception, then, is the brain's best guess about reality. When prediction and input align, experience feels smooth. When they clash, attention sharpens to update the model. This continuous forecasting saves energy, allowing you to interpret the world faster than raw data would allow. It's why familiar paths feel effortless and surprises capture focus. The mind is always a step ahead, creating the illusion of seamless presence. This mechanism makes perception both accurate and creative, an act of imagination grounded in survival. You don't merely see the world, you build it a heartbeat before it arrives. Color is not fixed in the world, but shaped by the mind's mood. Emotional states influence the sensitivity of retinal cells and the brain's visual interpretation. When you feel joy, serotonin and dopamine heighten contrast and brightness, making hues appear more vivid. Sadness dulls this same circuitry, muting tones into greys and blues. The nervous system mirrors inner experience onto outer light, tinting perception with feeling. This connection explains why art, sunset, or music can seem to glow differently depending on emotion. Color becomes language, translating mood into wavelength. The world itself hasn't changed. Your chemistry has. Perception is a mirror painted by emotion, a reminder that reality is partly self-created, and that every shade we see carries traces of how the heart feels in that moment. The human eye contains a small blind spot where the optic nerve meets the retina, yet the mind never notices. Instead, the brain fills this gap automatically, blending surrounding detail to create seamless vision. It does the same with memory, logic, and emotion completing patterns where data is missing. This ability to invent continuity keeps perception stable but also makes it subjective. What you see is always a partnership between input and imagination. The mind's filling of blanks reflects its deep instinct to create coherence from fragments. It's a quiet collaboration, reality offering pieces, the brain painting the rest. This illusion protects understanding and sanity, reminding us that certainty is constructed, a tapestry woven from what exists and what the mind gently adds. Optical illusions relax the visual cortex by giving it permission to play. When perception encounters an image that defies logic-shifting lines, impossible shapes, colors that move the brain's predictive circuits pause, releasing control. This momentary confusion slows overactive neural firing and resets focus. Much like a mental stretch, the eyes stay active, but the effort of interpretation eases into curiosity. Illusions remind the brain that perception isn't about accuracy alone but flexibility. They offer relief from constant precision, letting the visual system rediscover wonder. In that pause between knowing and not knowing, the mind finds rest, the same peace that comes from art, nature, or dream. Seeing differently becomes a form of stillness, proof that even confusion can be calm when met with awe. Silence is never truly silent. When the world grows quiet, you begin to hear the brain's internal hum, the faint electrical activity of neurons firing, blood moving, and the nervous system maintaining rhythm. This background tone, known as spontaneous neural oscillation, is the body's hidden soundtrack. It keeps perception anchored, even in absence. What we call silence is actually the sound of life continuing quietly, the hum of being. Listening to it can feel like hearing the mind breathe. In this stillness, awareness expands inward, and you recognize that peace isn't the lack of sound, but the harmony of subtle ones. The brain's hum is the music beneath thoughts steady, gentle, and eternal, reminding you that even in the quietest moment, you are never separate from the rhythm that keeps you alive. Expectation shapes taste more than flavor itself. When you anticipate sweetness or bitterness, the brain primes the gustatory cortex and releases neurotransmitters that alter perception. A familiar brand, a color, or even a price tag can change how something tastes before it reaches the tongue. This predictive processing helps the mind navigate the sensory world efficiently, but it also proves that experience is part imagination. Taste lives as much in belief as in biology. That's why comfort foods soothe. They taste like safety because your brain expects them to. The act of eating becomes memory, emotion, and culture layered upon chemistry. What we savor is not just flavor, but faith in what flavor means, reassurance made edible. Randomness is rarely random to the brain. Even in chaos, the mind searches for rhythm, patterns that promise order. When it finds them a repeating noise, a flicker of light, the pulse of rain, the nervous system relaxes. Predictability reduces uncertainty, lowering stress and restoring focus. This is why nature's sounds feel calming. Beneath their apparent disorder lies fractal regularity, balance within variation. The brain recognizes this hidden structure and mirrors it, syncing its own oscillations to the rhythm outside. In randomness, calm emerges through recognition of subtle consistency. It's not control that soothes us, but harmony. The universe hums in patterns too complex to predict, yet simple enough to trust. And the mind, hearing that echo, finally rests. Symmetry pleases the mind because it signals safety and efficiency. In nature, balanced forms often indicate health, stability, and predictability. The visual cortex processes symmetry faster, rewarding the brain with a small burst of pleasure, the satisfaction of recognition. This response evolved as a shortcut for identifying faces, mates, and edible plants. But symmetry also satisfies something deeper, the craving for balance mirrored in thought and emotion. The mind sees harmony in proportion and reflects it internally. Artists and architects have long used this instinct to evoke calm and order. When the eyes trace symmetry, the nervous system quiets, aligning perception with equilibrium. Beauty, then, is not vanity but biology's sigh of relief, the feeling of everything finally fitting together. Seeing without naming is pure perception. When you look at something and resist labeling it tree, face, the sky, the verbal centers in the brain rest, and awareness becomes direct. Colors grow richer, shapes expand, and boundaries soften. This mode of seeing bypasses judgment, returning vision to its raw state. The mind no longer tries to classify but to experience. Such observation activates the right hemisphere, associated with intuition and holistic awareness, and quiets the analytical left. In this silence of thought, the world feels larger, more alive. Seeing becomes communion rather than recognition. It's the art of meeting reality without the interference of words. An ancient way of looking that reveals how presence itself is the clearest form of understanding. Beyond sight, awareness expands quieter, slower, complete. When the mind is at rest, it isn't empty. It begins to talk to itself. This internal conversation comes from the brain's default mode network, a system that activates when focus turns inward. It strings together memories, plans, and fragments of identity, weaving continuity from chaos. Self-talk keeps the sense of I alive, narrating existence in real time. But when this voice grows quieter, awareness deepens. The observer behind thought comes forward. Meditation and daydreaming both use this network, balancing reflection and imagination. It's the mind's idle engine, always humming, keeping you tethered to story. Yet behind the narration lies stillness, a consciousness that doesn't need words to know it exists. Self-talk is the echo, awareness is the source. Listening to that silence is where identity begins to dissolve into calm understanding. Meaning arises whenever the brain recognizes pattern, from constellations in the sky to rhythm in speech. Perception links fragments into coherence. This instinct evolved for survival. Finding order meant predicting safety, but it also birthed philosophy, art, and faith. The reward system releases dopamine each time a pattern clicks into place, giving satisfaction to comprehension itself. Yet the mind doesn't stop at what's real. It invents structure even in randomness. Through this lens, life becomes narrative. Chaos becomes purpose. Meaning is not discovered, it's constructed. Shaped by the patterns the brain decides to keep, this ability transforms the ordinary into the sacred, a rhythm, a symbol, a memory. To recognize pattern is to feel connected, to sense that the universe and your place within it might actually make sense after all. Curiosity is nature's oldest survival tool. Long before humans built language, exploration kept organisms alive. In the brain, curiosity activates the dopaminergic pathways of reward, propelling learning and adaptation. It reduces fear by replacing it with engagement, turning uncertainty into opportunity. When you seek to know, your neural circuits flood with anticipation, the same chemistry that fuels hope. Evolution favored the curious, because those who looked beyond the known found better shelter, food, and ideas. Even now, curiosity protects mental health. Guarding against stagnation and despair, it connects the self to possibility, making the unfamiliar feel like invitation. Every question, however small, is an act of courage, the mind stretching toward the unknown, proving that wonder isn't luxury but instinct. In curiosity, awareness remembers what it means to be alive. Between thought and awareness lies a quiet threshold. Thought moves in language. Fast and structured, awareness observes without comment. Most of the day, the two blend, making it hard to notice the difference, but in still moments, they separate the witness, watching the stream of mind. Neuroscientists link this state to reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, where control softens and perception widens. The result is calm clarity, a view of consciousness untangled from content. Awareness is not what thinks, it's what knows thinking is happening. Resting here feels spacious, like stepping back from noise into light. The boundary is subtle, but crossing it transforms experience. The mind stops being the story and becomes its listener. Consciousness flickers like light, oscillating between attention and absence. Brain scans show awareness pulsing in rhythmic waves, synchronized with neural oscillations that rise and fade dozens of times per second. These fluctuations create the illusion of seamless continuity, a film reel of perception stitched by time. When the rhythm slows, as in meditation or deep rest, consciousness expands, feeling infinite. When it quickens, it narrows into focus. Each flicker is the universe perceiving itself through you, blinking in and out of being. The mind's light never truly goes dark. It simply changes tempo. Awareness, then, is not a steady flame but a cosmic shimmer, fragile, constant, and endlessly renewing. To notice its rhythm is to glimpse the heartbeat of existence itself. The sense of a constant self is one of the mind's most convincing illusions. Neuroscience shows that identity is not fixed, but reconstructed, moment to moment, through memory, emotion, and sensory feedback. The brain binds these shifting signals into a seamless narrative, creating the feeling of continuity. Yet beneath that story, perception and personality subtly change with each breath, each heartbeat. The I you recall is already past. The I you anticipate has not yet formed. Still, the illusion is necessary. It provides stability amid constant change. Without it, thought would fragment. The self is less a solid being than a rhythm, a point of reference moving through time. Awareness watches it arise and dissolve endlessly, recognizing that the one who observes and the one observed are the same flow, mirrored in motion. Empathy feels like merging because, for a moment, the brain blurs the line between self and other. When we witness another's emotion, mirror neurons activate, replicating their state within our own neural circuits. The anterior insular and cingulate cortex light up as if the experience were happening to us. This temporary overlap fosters understanding deeper than logic. Compassion is not imagined, it's embodied simulation. The boundaries soften, and the nervous system synchronizes to shared feeling. In that resonance, difference fades, replaced by recognition. Empathy is the mind remembering its collective nature, each consciousness reflecting the other, like mirrors facing one another. For that instant, connection is not concept, but sensation. The self expanded until it includes someone else's heartbeat, or has a distinct neural signature, a brief silence within the brain's self-referential networks. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for control and identity, quiets. While sensory regions surge with vivid activity, time dilates, boundaries blur, and attention widens to absorb immensity, whether it's a vast sky or a profound idea. Awe suspends the ordinary dialogue of thought. It humbles the ego by confronting it with scale. This mix of smallness and wonder releases dopamine and oxytocin, linking curiosity with calm. Awe doesn't shrink the self, it stretches it to match the universe. In that expansion, meaning arises effortlessly, not from reason but from recognition, the quiet understanding that existence itself is larger, deeper, and kinder than comprehension can reach. Wonder slows brain activity by shifting the nervous system into parasympathetic balance. When faced with beauty or mystery, the amygdala quiets and alpha waves increase, promoting calm focus rather than analysis. This pause allows sensory detail to saturate awareness without judgment. Time feels slower because attention widens. The world's edges soften, and curiosity replaces control. In this rhythm, the brain releases dopamine not from mastery, but from openness. Wonder is rest, disguised as discovery, a biological permission to stop striving and simply witness. The slower the mind moves, the more vivid reality becomes. This stillness is not idleness, but awareness, breathing fully, a reminder that awe and peace are often the same frequency, heard differently depending on how deeply you listen. Beneath dreams lies a quiet consciousness that never sleeps, even when awareness fades. A subtle layer of monitoring continues, tracking sound, breath, and heartbeat. This background presence ensures survival, but also preserves identity through the night. EEG scans show low-frequency oscillations, maintaining rhythmic order, while the rest of the brain drifts through story and symbol. It's the silent observer behind all states of mind, the field where thought appears and dissolves. When you awaken, that continuity greets you before memory returns, the simple knowing that you are beneath dreaming and waking alike. Consciousness hums, steady and unbroken. It is the still lake beneath the waves of mind, reflecting everything yet disturbed by nothing, waiting quietly for morning light. At the edge of knowing, the mind finally rests. Self-acceptance changes the brain's architecture of fear. When you meet your flaws with understanding instead of resistance, the amygdala's alarm response weakens, and the prefrontal cortex gains control. Each act of self-compassion rewires the circuits that associate imperfection with danger. Neuroplasticity ensures that over time, kindness toward yourself becomes the default reaction, not anxiety. The inner critic quiets, replaced by calm observation. This is not denial, but integration. The brain learning that safety comes from inclusion, not avoidance. As jugement dissolve, the nervous system rests, and clarity returns. The fear that once protected now transforms into trust, self-acceptance. At its core is the nervous system learning the truth. You are no longer the threat you've been running from. Stillness is the body's native intelligence. When you stop moving, internal systems begin to self-correct. Blood pressure drops, heart rhythm synchronizes, and muscles release stored tension. The parasympathetic system awakens, guiding the body back into equilibrium without conscious effort. This wisdom predates language. It is evolution's memory of survival through rest. Stillness lets information flow freely through the vagus nerve, aligning mind and physiology in harmony. In that quiet alignment, healing happens not by force, but by permission. The body knows how to return to balance if given time. To be still is to listen to that knowing, to let the deeper intelligence of flesh and breath resume its work. Steady and precise. Long before thought interferes, compassion steadies breathing because empathy synchronizes the rhythms of mind and body. When you extend care towards someone, oxytocin rises and stress hormones drop, slowing the breath naturally. The act of kindness activates the parasympathetic system, encouraging calm regulation rather than urgency. This physiological balance deepens emotional stability. You feel connected, not depleted. Compassion isn't just moral, it's mechanical harmony. Shared understanding turns tension into rhythm, merging self and other into one gentle pulse. Breathing becomes smoother, heart rate steadier, as if both bodies share a single quiet pace. Science calls it vagal resonance, the heart calls it peace. Through compassion, the body remembers coherence, and calm becomes a shared language of care rather than solitude. Inner peace is not a feeling but a state of neural coherence. When mind and body synchronize heart rate, breathing, and brain waves, aligning the nervous system enters flow, cortisol drops, dopamine and serotonin stabilize, and the brain's communication between hemispheres strengthens. This balance feels like serenity because energy once used for vigilance is freed for presence. Meditation, gratitude, and gentle attention all trigger this physiological harmony. Peace, then, that is not abstract but measurable, a pattern of rhythms in resonance. The body hums at its natural frequency, thoughts slow, and awareness expands without effort. The science of inner peace is simply the biology of balance returning to itself. The music of the organism, remembering its original tune. Kindness quiets the amygdala by replacing threat detection with empathy. When you perform or even imagine a kind act, neural circuits associated with fear deactivate, while those tied to reward and connection to light up. This shift reduces cortisol and steadies heart rate, sending signals of safety throughout the body. Kindness redirects focus from self-protection to shared existence, dissolving the sense of isolation that fuels anxiety. The more consistently you practice it, the more the brain rewires toward calm reactivity. What begins as moral choice becomes biological transformation. In kindness, survival evolves into cooperation. Fear turns into understanding. The mind learns that peace is not earned by control, but given through generosity, the simplest, most ancient way the brain remembers it belongs. Contentment moves through the body like a slow tide. It doesn't rush or demand, but hums quietly beneath awareness. This state arises when dopamine and serotonin reach equilibrium, neither chasing reward nor sinking into apathy. The heart rate steadies, breathing deepens, and neural circuits in the prefrontal cortex synchronize, creating a sense of grounded clarity. Unlike joy, which spikes and fades, contentment sustains, requiring no external trigger. It is the nervous system recognizing safety in the present moment. This rhythm is slow because it's stable, the pace of existence when nothing must change. Contentment isn't excitement, it's peace in motion, the body's way of whispering that you already have enough. Mindfulness reshapes long-term health by retraining how the brain responds to stress. Regular practice thickens grey matter in regions linked to emotional regulation and reduces activity in the amygdala. The vagus nerve becomes more responsive, improving heart rate, variability, and immune function. Cortisol levels decline, while serotonin stabilizes, creating resilience that endures beyond the meditation cushion. Over months and years, mindfulness alters genetic expression, lowering inflammation markers and strengthening cellular repair. The mind learns to pause before reacting, to observe rather than resist. This repeated awareness becomes physical protection, a living buffer against anxiety and illness. The result is longevity through presence, proof that calm attention is not stillness alone, but active maintenance of the body's most intelligent systems. Serenity has biology written all over it. When peace fills awareness, measurable shifts ripple through the body, blood pressure drops, alpha waves rise, and the parasympathetic system dominates. The prefrontal cortex maintains gentle focus, while stress circuits quiet. This pattern strengthens over time, training the brain to return to equilibrium faster after disruption. Serenity isn't passive, it's efficiency, a state where energy flows where it's needed, not wasted on defense. Evolution designed this balance as the body's reward for safety. In serenity, chemistry and consciousness align, turning existence into coherence. The biology of peace is proof that calm is not absence but function perfected. The body operating with quiet precision, like a heartbeat that knows its own rhythm by heart. Balance feels like home because the body is built to seek it. Every system circulatory, tout neural. Emotional operates through feedback loops designed to return to equilibrium. When balance is restored, the brain releases endorphins and oxytocin, rewarding the return to harmony. It's why we sigh after resolving conflict, why stillness feels like belonging. The nervous system reads symmetry as safety, signaling that survival is assured. This instinct runs deeper than thought. It's cellular memory, the ancient pulse of life, finding its center again. Balance reminds us that wellness is not perfection but movement around a steady core. To live in balance is to live in rhythm with the design of nature itself, always adjusting, always returning home. Rest is the mind's highest form of intelligence returning to itself. In sleep, stillness, or quiet reflection, neural activity doesn't stop, it reorganizes. Synapses strengthen or release, metabolic waste clears, and thought reweaves into order. Rest is the system's way of updating itself, integrating learning and healing, Even in wakeful pauses, micro-rests between thoughts allow consciousness to refresh. The brain's wisdom lies not in constant output, but in knowing when to stop. True intelligence cycles, alternating effort and surrender. In that surrender, awareness rediscovers clarity, memory sharpens, and creativity blooms. Rest is not retreat, it's completion. The full circle of mind and body, remembering that restoration is part of understanding. When everything stops striving, what remains is the pure intelligence of being. And now, the mind has circled back to silence, completing its quiet journey through the hidden chambers of thought and feeling. What once raced the questions, the noise, the endless measuring has slowed into a single rhythm shared between mind and body. Every breath you take now echoes that rhythm. Each inhale, a gathering of calm. Each exhale, a release into stillness. The body has always known this wisdom. The natural return to balance, long before words tried to name it. The science of the mind is also the poetry of being alive. Every emotion, every thought, every memory that passed through tonight has served its purpose to remind you that calm isn't something to earn, but something to remember. The neurons that once sparked with effort now rest in synchrony, their quiet pulses weaving the gentle hum you feel within. Stillness is not absence, it's the sound of repair, somewhere deeper, beyond awareness. Each cell continues its rhythm, tension, release, renewal, a cycle older than consciousness itself. You don't need to guide it or understand it. The body is listening to a wisdom older than thought, responding to the same music that turns tides and sways trees in wind. Peace is simply the mind, remembering its place within that endless pattern. Let these final moments widen into space. Let thought dissolve into warmth, memory into light, and language into quiet. You are not apart from awareness, you are its center. What feels like rest is the universe resetting itself through you, one steady heartbeat at a time. There is nothing to solve now, nothing to reach for, just the soft knowing that you are whole, safe, and infinitely connected to everything that breathes and dreams. The mind can finally let go, because the body is still, and the world for this small, perfect moment is at peace with you. So drift now, deeper, into that vast, quiet intelligence that hums beneath thought and time. Let sleep take you not as escape, but as return the deep, remembering that peace was never gone, only waiting for your attention to grow still enough to find it again. Rest now. The mind has done enough. The body knows the way, and somewhere between breath and dream, you'll meet yourself again, the calm, luminous awareness that has been here all along.